Hey everyone. Today's episode is one that we've been sitting with for a while, and we're sharing it now because it finally feels like the right time. Before we dive in, I want to offer a trigger warning and that this episode contains honest and detailed discussion of pregnancy loss, including miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, and surgical procedures. If this is a tender topic for you right now, please take care of yourself first and come back when it feels right. Rita and I are both on our bleeds this week. Yes, we're synced up. And there's something about this time in our cycle that feels open and grounded enough to have this conversation. Today, we're talking about pregnancy loss, not from a clinical perspective, but from our own personal experience. Between us, we've had 4 losses, and every single one of them looked completely different, physically, emotionally, and in terms of what we needed and what we didn't. We're sharing our stories, we're talking about what actually helped us heal, and we're being honest about what our medical system gets really wrong when it comes to supporting women through this. Whether you've been through pregnancy loss yourself, or you're here to better understand what someone you love is going through, we hope this episode helps you feel a little less alone and a little more equipped to show up for yourself or for someone else. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this conversation.
Welcome to the Ayurveda for Women's Health podcast, where we simplify ancient Ayurvedic wisdom into practical guidance for everyday life. Between the overwhelming wellness trends, quick fixes, and conflicting health advice out there, we return to a science that has been around for thousands of years. I'm Rita, an Ayurvedic health counselor.
And I'm Brittni, an Ayurveda practitioner. In a world that disconnects us from our bodies, we are here to guide you back. Through body literacy, practical tools, and time-tested science, we will help you step boldly into a more empowered, aligned version of yourself. So let's dive in. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Views expressed do not represent our employers. So very much in alignment with having this podcast together is that Rita and I discovered we are now synced up in our menstrual cycles. We were texting the last couple of days and we both started bleeding a day apart, which is not surprising to me. I think that was your response.
Of course. Yeah, of course we are.
Of course we are.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just going to jump in and share how today's topic originated. So we had a whole plan where we had an outline and we're going to talk about hair loss, and that'll come. Keep an eye out for that one. But in true on your period fashion, Brittni texted me at a late morning and was like, hey, I'm just in this place where I'm feeling pretty open and want to talk about pregnancy loss. How does that resonate for you? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm also in that place in my menstrual cycle that I just feel open, and I think it's a topic that we are both feeling ready to talk about. And also, interestingly, a topic we did talk about at one point way back when we were first starting to record, and it was something where we chose not to air that episode for a few different reasons. And I think as I sit here today, I'm like, oh, that was the right call, because I think it is something that is a really heavy experience. And I think something that I think a lot of women who experience pregnancy loss go through a period of like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about it because people don't talk about it. But I think it's really important that we're always prioritizing when it feels right for you to talk about it. So I'm glad that I'm glad we're synced up, because that's always fun, but I'm glad we're coming to that place in the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It was a very emotional recording, and I think at the time felt very helpful, but it also was like, this isn't quite the right time to share. And yeah, and now it feels, I was thinking about it this morning, and we're in the middle of a heat wave right now. Like this heat wave is just starting. It's Pitta season. It's very hot out. I'm on my bleed. You're on your bleed too. So I'm feeling like this like huge release of just slowing down and softening and letting this blood flow. And I think for me, it felt like the right time to share and feel comfortable and non-emotional. Maybe I'll cry on this. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Crying is welcome.
Always possible. But yeah, I feel more grounded in feeling ready to share in more depth about both losses over the last 6 months. And I hope that this conversation helps people. And I think that's really the point, is when we go through any experience and to share perspective and offer a human experience to other people, I think that connection is really what keeps us connected in community, and in being able to access support is reminding each other to be compassionate and understanding that so many people are going through things that we will never, ever know the depth of.
Mm.
And I think that was like one really big thing that I have felt through all of this, is reminding me that there's so many people out there that have things they're going through that no one would ever know. And not everyone has to share, right? There's a timing to feeling ready to share. And I think that's where I feel ready today.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, specifically in pregnancy loss, it's 1 in 4 women that experience pregnancy loss. So I assume that the majority of the people listening to this will probably be women who have experienced pregnancy loss, or maybe it's somebody tuning in to learn more about how to support a loved one who's going through pregnancy loss. But I think that's such an important piece to call out, is 1 in 4. Like, so many women have experienced this and have gone through this. And yeah, I think it's something where we're making some changes culturally for how it's talked about. I mean, especially when you think about how it was talked about 30, 40 years ago. But I think we have such a long way to go as a culture, and like you said, as a community, and learning how to support women and support families in on different fertility journeys. And I think it's also just going to look really different for different women. I think some people will resonate with our experiences and some won't. And I think that's all good. I think every person processes grief differently. I think every person processes physical experiences differently. And I think our intention here today, like you said, is to really just bring awareness and communication to a topic that is often not talked about. And I think also, having both had experience with pregnancy loss and have really different experiences with pregnancy loss between the two of us, you've had two and I've had two, and each of those were very different situations. And so, yeah, I think it's bringing communication and awareness to that. And then also, I think sharing a bit of what's been supportive for us so that we can really offer that to people listening. And Ayurveda just offers so much when it comes to how to nourish yourself and support yourself, and whether that's through the physical piece, through the grief piece, and how deeply interconnected those two things are. Ayurveda just has so much to offer. And so I'm really excited to be able to share that piece today.
yeah. And I think what's really important, I mean, all of that, what you just shared is really important. I think to go a little deeper, and was something that I didn't know, just the vastness of what pregnancy loss actually means.
Mm.
And we'll go into our experiences, and I think it will really highlight and maybe provide a realization for people that, like, pregnancy loss is not a simple cut and dry
Mm.
situation. It can mean so many different things, from a physical, emotional standpoint, mental standpoint. No situation is the same.
Mm.
And I think that's something that we use the word pregnancy loss or miscarriage, and I think that already identifies it as an expectation that someone forms around what you went through when
Mm.
they hear that word. And that's just not true, because I think people hear in our experiences all four of these experiences we're going to share about is like how drastically different they are and what that can mean for someone, even from like a financial standpoint.
Sure.
Like that's,
Yeah.
there's so many factors and layers to it.
Yeah.
That we'll talk about in more depth. But that was something that was very eye-opening for me personally, where I know people that had experienced miscarriage and pregnancy loss. Until I went through it myself, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an empathetic person, right? I work in women's health. I work one-on-one with people. And until I actually went through it myself, I didn't understand the depth of the trauma that people can go through
Yeah.
in it. It really humbled me in learning that through these really challenging, traumatic experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, that's been the one silver lining of being on this journey and having these experiences is I do think having that experience myself has helped me in supporting other women who are going through that. And I mean, it's kind of interesting. I'm sure I'll get into this, but in the timing after my first loss, I ended up having two very close people in my life who also had a pregnancy loss. And being able to support them felt like something I couldn't have done or wouldn't have known how to do in that same way if I didn't have that experience myself. So I hear you on that piece. And then the other thing that I did want to say is whenever we're having conversations around fertility, it's always really important to me that it's like this very inclusive conversation. And I think I also just want to have this be inclusive of, and I'm really looking at this episode as you and I are like Care Bear beaming love from our hearts for all women who have gone through loss in any way. And I also want that to be inclusive of women who are on an infertility journey where they have been trying to get pregnant and that's been unsuccessful. And I think sometimes women in that camp can feel really out of that loop where they're like, well, I haven't had this pregnancy loss and, I can't connect with that group of people. And that can just feel really isolating in itself. And so I don't know if I worded that in the best way, but and we'll dive more into this, but I just think it's, it's just such, it's hard. It's really hard when you're in a place where you are ready to be a mother. And you and I have said before that we don't really love the expression trying to conceive. Like we've used other terminology before of like opening up the portal. And I think when you've opened up that portal and you feel really ready and excited and it doesn't come in the way that we wanted it to come or expected it to come or thought it would come, it's very painful on a whole lot of levels because I think you already have so much love for your baby that you haven't met yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in itself is feeling that mothering
Yeah.
call, right? Like you've already stepped into that role.
Yeah.
It's just the physical piece that's like not there yet. And yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard.
Yeah.
Well, where do we begin?
Yeah. I think that maybe it would be helpful to share some of our experiences with pregnancy loss. Is there anything that comes to mind that you wanted to touch on before we do that? Or,
No, I think I guess going off of what you just said,
yeah.
thinking when we first began opening the portal of conception,
Mm.
it felt very, just looking back on it now, it feels so naive.
Mm. Mm.
Like it just felt so sweet and innocent and like, this is going to be perfect. I'm really
Mm.
healthy. This is
Mm-hmm.
going to be great. Like it'll be no problem for us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and we got pregnant right away. It
Mm-hmm.
was like the second cycle. were like, wow, great. Yeah, this is awesome. This is perfect. This is just what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hadn't even had our ultrasound yet. And at 7.5 weeks, we lost the pregnancy, and it was an emergency situation, sudden, immediate, severe pain, like very quickly within like 10 minutes. It kind of went from like mild cramping to, oh shit, like call the doctor. I don't know what's going on. And John was like, I don't know who to call. Like, who do I call? And I was like, I don't know, call the ER. And they were like, you need to come in. So it all just happened very quickly, and we were very panicked. And I had stood up and fainted. Um, and when I had fainted, I went to the bathroom. So like everything was a mess.
Wow.
John was trying to help me. And so I woke up from like fainting and like was trying to get into the bathroom, and then was trying to like clean up, all while having like severe pain. And couldn't really stand up. Like I had to like crawl into the bathroom. And, Rosa didn't know what was going on. It was like very intense for all of us. And so it took us like 15 minutes to get out of the house first thing while I'm in all this pain. And then uh and that was like the most excruciating, longest ride to the hospital of my life. That I've never experienced pain like that before. And I would do anything to stop it. Like I was like, give whatever it needs to be done. Like I will do it. Was the feeling, which is very intense for me because I'm very much like, I can handle a lot of pain, and I've had painful periods in the past where I'm like, no, I'm not taking ibuprofen. I'm going to work through this. This was like, give me whatever drugs you need to give me to make this pain stop.
Yeah.
And so anyways, we got to the hospital, and there's a lot of questions, and I think they did, I forget the timing of things, but essentially they did an internal ultrasound, and they weren't seeing anything wrong. Like there was nothing obvious going on. And once I got the pain meds, like then like things settled down and I could like talk to them. And within 2 hours, I passed like a huge tissue, and it wasn't like people talk about like, oh, it's like a tissue that you'll pass. And once I saw it, I was like, oh, that's tissue. That's different. That's not period, right? Like this is different, and I can see it. And it all just happened so fast. Like I went to the bathroom and I didn't even feel it come out. Like I just turned around and was like, oh, and saw it. And we called the doctor in, and basically I forget the timing of things, but essentially they were like confirmed that, okay, this is a miscarriage, and this happens, and 50% of pregnancies end in miscarriage is what the doctor told me. And that was it. And I went home, and they said rest and take Tylenol, and that's it. We'll update your doctor. Or the only recommendation I was given was to go back in 5 days to get my blood tested to make sure that my HCG was coming down at a normal level, to know that I had passed all the tissue. And that was it. So it was this like intensely traumatic, sudden experience. And John and I just like, what? Like you just leave and you're like, what the fuck just happened? We just go home now? Like, and I think we like, it was like around dinner time, and we're like, should we just pick up a pizza on the way home? Like we didn't know what to do. And so we did. And it was weird. It was this like, we were such in a fog and such a daze. And we walked in to like pick up the pizza, and I remember holding the door for somebody, but I couldn't say anything. Like I had no words. And they had spoken to me, and I just like couldn't say words to them. And they were like, "You're welcome." And I was just like, "What?" And it just like that moment stuck with me because it just made me realize you just never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
hours later, literally an hour later, I was in
Mm.
the ER passing our baby.
Mm. Yeah.
And that was the experience I was having, like picking up dinner.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's such an important point as humans, even beyond this conversation and beyond this topic. It's like we never know what people are going through. And so those experiences where we're like, oh, that person was rude or that person was weird. It's like, let's give each other some space and maybe walk by those people and be like, oh, she seemed off. Let me like, Care Bear, send some love to her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's like it's not easy to do that, but I think that's yeah, thank you for explaining that story and reminding us all of that. It's really important.
Well, it really hit me because I've been that person.
Yeah.
I've been that judgmental person. And I still am, right? And I have to
Mhm.
remind myself, like, whoa, like I have to catch myself there. And
Mhm.
it's just interesting that of all of that, like that was a moment that really stuck with me. And I think it really has changed a part of who I am
Mm.
in a way that I never would have thought about previously.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it was a very impactful split second of a moment.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and then after that, I really like we went into a cave. So this was like mid-January, and I like closed my phone. I moved my clients, and I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Mm.
Um, and it was a very strange place to be. And I felt like I was there for a very long time
Mhm.
before I wanted to talk to anyone. It felt very isolating. And I want to say it was probably like almost maybe like 6 weeks, 2 months or something that like I started to feel like I could be in public again.
Mm. Mhm.
And there was like some work commitments that were going on in that meantime that was like really, really hard to do with like events that I run,
Mhm.
and just having to show up for that and like compartmentalize and then go back into my cave
Mhm.
after it was over.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm grateful like the other areas of my work, like working with clients, like my clients, were very understanding. And when I asked to move their sessions out a few weeks and just like give some space after having a loss, like I didn't specify at the time, but we
Mhm.
had a loss in the family. Um, And it was also right around the time that we were working on our podcast and
Mm.
like getting our podcast going before it was live. And like, to your point, what you shared earlier, Rita, like you were someone I shared this with
Yeah.
very like immediately. Right. And I think if anything, it has like brought a lot of depth to our friendship
Absolutely.
in ways that we never had planned for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you're probably one of the only people I was talking to at that time, other than like John. And eventually we shared with our family and parents, but like I really wasn't sharing with people. Um, and so I think what's interesting about that is when I did share and I did actually post about it online, we were actually already pregnant again, I think, when I shared
Oh, right.
socially,
Yep.
very early, still, but it did feel like a huge relief because I remember feeling at that time something really big just happened to us.
Mm.
And I can't just like show up and do small talk with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel gutted, and I'm not someone who can very easily just like put on a face and
Mm-hmm.
like not talk about it. And at the same time, sharing about it, I had a whole other host of problems and challenges with it, where I did share in some situations, and the responses that I received were like, they gutted me even more.
Mm-hmm.
It was like another wave of pain is what it felt like. And I was not prepared for that at all. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me was like people saying, I'm so sorry. And where I know it comes from a place of like intention, of like good intention and feeling sorry, to me, I felt so much more isolated in my pain and in my loss, and not connected. And it made it feel like, oh, you're over there, I feel sorry for you, like you're over here in your loss, and not like I'm connected to you and I support you. Which I had never thought about before. And I also got a lot of responses from people that were sharing their own stories of friends or people they know in detail, and I found that to be uh, really hard. Like, I didn't enjoy that, because to me in that moment it felt like it was taking away my experience of this like intense pain that I was going through at that time. And now suddenly I have to think about this other person's pain and not just be present in my own. Like, I didn't have the capacity. And so I didn't expect that either. What I did find really helpful were responses that were just people being, I love you, I support you, and that's it. Like, I'm here for you. Or not even saying anything and just, okay, like, I acknowledge. That was surprising to me, like how helpful those responses were, as opposed to like taking away from the experience and just like letting me exist within what I was going through.
I think what I remember really admiring about the post that you did on Instagram about sharing about your pregnancy loss is you said, this is what is helpful for me and this is what isn't helpful for me. You shared that like it's not helpful for me, and I might be misquoting, so forgive me, but like that I'm sorry piece, that wasn't what you were finding helpful at that time. Because I do think it's something where we're all going to feel different things and have different things that feel helpful and not helpful. Because I will definitely have some things to share, but mine are very different from what you just shared. I will say my sister-in-law, who I love so much, whenever I reach out with something that's challenging in my life, whether it was this or something different, her response is always, I love you. How can I support you? Really just asking, like, what do you need from me right now? I love you. I want to be here for you. How can I help you? And I think that is something that I've really learned and taken away, because I think we can want to jump in and be like, well, here's a story that might make you feel better. Or like, here's a way that I'm going to try to connect, because I think we're just so uncomfortable collectively with how to hold grief. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And it's so well intended. And I remember when you and I were having conversation on this at one point, one thing I heard a lot with my first pregnancy loss was, well, now you know that you can get pregnant, and that's a positive thing. And I completely understand how well intended it was, but it cut me in that it like really that wasn't a fear that I had. So it was almost like, oh, were you having fear that I couldn't get pregnant? And yeah, and again, it's well intended, but I remember you saying to me, well, I think I've been that woman. Like, I think I've said these things. to women before. And I just want to also create a lot of space for that like we have all been people who have said things that are very well intended and hurt. And so I think having this conversation, this like sub conversation of this greater conversation is so important that we can just acknowledge that our intentions are not always in alignment with our words and our actions. And so I think there's some real power to when we are navigating grief and loss of any kind to just openly say, this is how you can help me right now. This is what I need and this is what I don't need.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is if you don't know, that's
Mm.
also fine. And I think that was a big thing for me. And that was something that actually we talked about with our therapist through all this was uh me realizing, oh, I actually don't know what I need. And that's what I need to tell you right now is I don't know.
Mm.
That was something that I need to realize where I was like trying to come up with something and I really was just like, I don't know. I just need time and patience. I guess is what the need was, time and patience, not like an action.
Yeah.
And that was a realization we had through after our second loss through working with a grief therapist. He like brought that to our attention. He's like,
Mm.
sounds like you just need time and patience. And I was like, yes, yes, that's it. So yeah, and I think to your point, Rita, I think this is that reminder of we don't know how things feel for people and how our language feels for people and just acknowledging that and being able to once you know like you only know what you know until you
Mm-hmm.
know something different and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully this conversation helps enlighten some of that
Yeah.
what that could be so
Yeah.
and this whole experience for me felt very it was immediate grief. It was all grief was the emotion. It was grief, it was loss, it was sadness. Um and we had a ceremony. We had a ceremony for both losses. Both very different ceremonies, which was also really cool. Um but honoring the life, honoring our baby's life, our
Mm-hmm.
connection to them, honoring their spirit even if it was such a short time with us and we never got to hold them um, in our arms, but they were held very much in our heart and in my womb. And I think in all loss, like I think that was something that was so helpful in processing and just connecting to our baby. And still now, we ended up naming our babies.
Mm.
So this was our winter baby. This was winter. Um,
Mm.
because this happened in January and now when it snows, it was like gently snowing in the woods and now I can like experience that and feel their energy
Mm.
through those elements.
Mm. That's beautiful, Brittni.
And then we had our spring baby. So
Mm.
baby spring in April was our second loss. And that was more like rain and just this other season. Um and so that's where we feel her is in the water and I say her because we did well, I'll go into this detail, but it was our daughter. Um so yeah, I think that that processing can look different for different people. And those were some of the things that really helped us in moving through our emotions and the experience. And the first one was all grief, and the second one was immediate anger
Mm.
and a completely different experience in all ways.
Mm.
But maybe I'll leave it there. And I don't know if you want to, share about what you're ready to share about in your loss. And I feel like that kind of summarizes the first experience for us.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So my first time getting pregnant was in October of 2024. And it was just like the happiest moment. And I remember I cried happy tears for the first time in my life because I mean, I'm a huge crier, but not up to that point. I'd never been out of happiness. And I remember just feeling on top of the world. And when I had my first appointment with my doctor, I was feeling good, but it had popped into my mind, really not before finding out I was pregnant, but since finding out I was pregnant, I was reminded that my mom had had an ectopic pregnancy and her mom did as well. And so I shared that with my doctor, and she reassured me that there wasn't a genetic connection there, that there was nothing in my medical history that would increase the risk for that, and that there was no indication. So I felt relieved, and yeah, went home and things were good, things were moving along, and then I ended up having some pretty profound pain suddenly on my right side. And she was monitoring my HCG levels, and they were starting to look a little funky and starting to dip, which at first I thought it was a miscarriage, and then they started to rise again. And that's where I remember it just like was this moment in my head where I was like, this is ectopic. And it's interesting because, again, I really didn't have this fear of ectopic pregnancy up until that point. So I don't know if there's a part of me that just knew or what, but that's what ended up happening is we learned that it was ectopic, which, if anyone doesn't know, it's when implants in the fallopian tube or somewhere outside of the uterus and therefore is non-viable. And so it was really scary, one, because I was suddenly having this pain, but more so in this conversation with my doctor where there's a lot of urgency. It was like, we need to act on this now. And she had recommended doing injections of methotrexate. And it was something where, again, it was like, you need to come in first thing tomorrow morning and have these injections. And it was so overwhelming to process because it was just this processing of the fact that the pregnancy was ectopic and non-viable and I was going to lose the pregnancy. And then also the second wave of like, what is this medication that I have to inject into my body? And I really came to a place where I'm like, I'm letting all of that go. This needs to happen. My fear of losing a fallopian tube is much higher than this medication. And I'm grateful for the medication, of course, and that it worked, and it was something that it terminated the pregnancy. I will do a little rant side note that so methotrexate is a chemo drug, and one of the side effects is it blocks the body's ability to make folate. And so it was discovered that it could be used in these circumstances of ectopic pregnancy. And so, I don't know, to me, that's just such a metaphor for women's health in this world and in this country that it's just such a secondary thought. It's like, oh, we could use this medication for women going through this experience. But I don't know. That's just always something that stuck with me. But yeah, so after I got the injections, I experienced some pretty profound side effects, and it's hard to know like what was the medication and what was the loss, but I was really nauseous, I was really sick, and just felt really inflamed and was having a lot of pain. And my doctor was great, and she monitored me very closely. We were in very close communication. I felt very supported in that process. And then I remember really vividly the last appointment that I had with her where my HCG levels were low and I was no longer considered pregnant. And I remember she just said, okay, good. Like, we're good. And call me if you need me. But otherwise, I want you to wait 6 months. That's typically the recommendation with methotrexate is to wait 6 months before trying again because there can be some birth defect risks. And yeah, she was like, take 6 months before you try again, and then call me when you have another positive pregnancy, and call me soon because your risk for ectopic is now higher. And I remember just sitting in my car and just thinking, that's it? Like, that's it? Like, yes, there's this little bit of a letdown now, this emergent energy of, oh my goodness, am I going to lose my fallopian tube? What's going to happen? You could die from ectopic pregnancy. It's a very scary thing. But then that was it. Then it was like, okay, I kept you alive. See you later. And I remember just sitting in my car and being so grateful for Ayurveda and so grateful to be somebody equipped with the knowledge of these care practices that I knew I needed. I knew that like my grief hadn't begun. I was in this emergency process and this fight, flight, or freeze, like make a plan, make this happen, do what you need to do. I hadn't started to process it. And I knew that that meant there was a long physical ride to that piece as well. And it, I remember in that moment before I even turned my car on, of saying out loud to myself, I am going to specialize in women's health and I'm going to help other women going through this experience because holy hell, this can't be it. Like this, we're not just going to keep women alive and then drop them off and say good luck. Like it's, our system of medicine just is so lacking in so many ways, but no more so than women's health. And kind of to jump ahead and then I'll jump back, that was my meaning making from this experience is I did end up doing a mentorship with the amazing Adina Rose Bright. And I did a year-long mentorship and learning about Ayurveda specifically for many different aspects of women's health, including pregnancy loss. And it was a year that I really focused on bringing all these practices into my own body and focusing on myself in that way. I will say that was one of the interesting aspects of having an ectopic pregnancy is I was given that time frame of those 6 months where we couldn't try again. It's like we had to temporarily close that window. And I think that forced me to really take the time and space to process the experience and to focus on my healing because I had to put this plan on hold. And I think in so many women that I've talked to, and again, just like the structure of our medical system and our culture, I think that most women aren't given the space to fully process the experience. And I think the way that that journey landed, it gave me the space that I had to. And I took it a level further because I had so much fear around the medication piece, which I think was probably just my anxiety. I think that so many people take those medications and go on to have healthy pregnancies. So I do want to say that. But I think having the ectopic pregnancy and thinking about what that could have meant for my fallopian tubes and the medication on top of that, I decided to do a panchakarma, which is a specific type of Ayurvedic cleanse that I think will hold for a whole other episode. But with that experience, when you go through the cleanse piece specifically for fertility, it's then recommended to take 3 months that you build up your nutrition again. And you're like cleansing out toxins and then rebuilding with really nourishing foods and practices. So that added on to the timeline even more. So it really ended up for me being like an 8-month period where I was closing the fertility journey window and really focusing on my healing physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I think that for me, like one of the biggest things that has come up with that is coming to a place where I felt the feelings because I think I kind of processed what I processed. And then I was coming to that place of, opening the window again, opening the conception window again, trying again, whatnot. And I think that there was this part of me that believed that I had to be now in this like positive vibes only mindset. And in order to manifest this, in order to like, bring the experience in, I had to be in this place of just fully believing it was going to happen when it was going to happen and not feeling the fear, the grief. And so, I'd have that experience of spending time with friends that were all pregnant or had their babies with them, or all of those things that can just feel so heart-wrenching when you're on that journey. And I'd cry on the way home. I always would do a lot of crying in my car, and I still do sometimes, to be clear. Like, I always love a good car cry, but it would be something where I'd feel guilty about the crying piece. Like I'd be like, "Oh, I'm still processing this. Like I haven't gotten over this yet." So on one hand, it would be like this feeling that I shouldn't have still been having those emotions, and also this fear of like, well, if I'm in this state, then it's not going to happen because I'm just in this fear, sad state. It was something where I think for much of my life, I would w- feel more comfortable shoving down the feelings and just immediately jumping into, well, here's the bright side of this. Here's the silver lining of this. And I think for me in that pregnancy loss, the meaning making, initially I went into it saying, this is about me helping other women and having this understanding. It really ended up being what I think of as our baby's first arrival, was helping me to learn this lesson of feel your feelings. Like, don't shove it down. Feel your feelings. And I also want to hold space, uh, that my experience of how I said that and feeling like my baby helped me with that lesson, that may not be something that resonates with other women. And I respect that completely.
It's interesting, in our conversations, and I think we've both done a lot of processing through our experiences together
Mm,
offline
yeah.
through this, and I think it's been really eye-opening in a lot of ways. And just thinking about what you're saying in the timeline of starting a family.
Mm,
And I think the expectation we have of that, and just really not, it's not anything that we really have control over.
yeah.
I think is the biggest lesson that I've learned through this is like,
Yeah.
and just to hear you describe, one thing led to another, and now you're in this situation. It's like being
Mm-hmm.
present in the unfolding of it, really hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we go into this like, you know, we're healthy, we're young, like this is going to be like, why wouldn't this work out?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I just hope this conversation brings more perspective to that
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it, where those expectations and that timeline, and it's like you kind of just got to take it out of the picture.
Mm,
And I think that was something that I'm still struggling with,
yeah.
the timing and the planning, and it really makes it challenging to feel like I'm not spending all of my time thinking about, will I be pregnant? Will I not be pregnant? If I
Mm-hmm.
am pregnant, what week would I be? Okay, if I'm at this week, then like,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm sure like coming as a Pitta constitution, like it's going to be hard for me not to think in that way, whereas
Yeah.
like maybe not for other constitutions. But I guess just to your point and how you're sharing it, like it is really eye opening that even just waiting that 6 months, being forced to wait that 6 months, 6 months can feel like a really long time
Yeah.
when you're ready.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just want to acknowledge that it within, your story and what you're sharing, because I think that will resonate with a lot of people. And now
Yeah.
suddenly it feels like now I've been in this journey for like this many years or months or whatever it is, it can feel very overwhelming
Yeah.
to have that be a part of it.
Yeah. My husband and I have come to a place with that where we will joke that this is an early lesson
Mm,
in respecting our baby's autonomy to
mm,
like do their thing and that they're going to come when they want to come. Because I think we often will joke that we're both just wildly stubborn people and that our future baby is going to be the most stubborn human around. And that this is like an early sign of that is like that, yeah, that they're going to come when they want to come. And I will say, like, for me, the other chapter of this, because I think what you just described, like that relationship with control and planning and that piece of letting go, that I think, I also, like, as I'm saying this, I just want to bring awareness also that, like, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that women just need to relax or like go on
mm,
vacation and then it will happen, right? Like, especially, yeah, it just, I think that this is such a nuanced conversation.
yeah.
But it's been for sure a big part of my journey personally is just accepting that this is different than I planned. And there's a part of that that just really, really sucks. And I think there's a part of me that will always grieve not having a certain type of experience. But I also can recognize that it's been a lesson for me in letting go of control, which I think can be a soul journey for Pitta constitutions. But the other chapter that has really been a part of this journey is I think that for so much of my life, I've been telling myself a story that there's something wrong with me. And I can trace that back when I was really young, not feeling comfortable with my body. And as I got older and was having some different health things, it was this anxiety around what's wrong with me. And even as those symptoms resolved, the littlest symptom that would pop up, this immediate spiral into anxiety, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And then that ectopic pregnancy hit. And again, I was like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my fallopian tubes? What's wrong with my uterus? Like, what's wrong with my body? And so in my second pregnancy loss, that was very recent. I just had my first bleed, or currently on my first bleed. Since that experience, it was this moment. Well, and I can talk more about that, but I would just say the biggest takeaway to share with that is I had, after the anxiety calmed down and that emergent piece was no longer there, I just had this huge clarity of we're not going to go back to that same story. There's nothing wrong with my body. And, it's not something like I'm not saying that blindly. Like I've pursued testing as my husband has, and I do think fertility, and we'll talk about this and how Ayurveda understands fertility from a health standpoint and how that can be a factor, that we can look at the health of our tissues. And I think for me, it's really been this realization of it's so much more than your physical body. Like the timing of bringing a spirit earthside is so much more than how much freaking protein you're eating. Like, and I'm not saying that that's not a role too, because we can do so much to support our physical health. But I think we each come into this world with different karmas, and that's a word that can be so misconstrued. But essentially, I think we each come into this world with different lessons to learn, with different family histories. I know that there's not a genetic link known for this ectopic pregnancy in my family, but I've joked often, like, all right, women in my line, like, what are we holding on to in our womb space? Like, what is it time to let go of, right? And so, yeah, I think it's been it's been something for me that has felt lighter is that my pregnancy loss experiences have taught me to let go of that story that has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And that I'd say I like to think of as a gift from our future baby. And again, that's not going to resonate with everyone. People go through really horrible experiences, but it is my truth and it is something that I wanted to share.
It's profound, Rita.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it really highlights there's so much at play. Like
Mm,
there's like things that are so much bigger than us, and
yeah.
conception and pregnancy and the whole journey through that portal is
Hmm.
truly a miracle experience.
Hmm.
And yeah, I agree with the whole statement, the whole sentiment. It's
Yeah.
something that I feel like we kind of learned the hard way
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah.
Like to your point, I was like, I eat all the things. I'm really healthy. I use Ayurveda, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
um, I take the herbs. I take my vitamins. Like I do all the things. Um, but it's just so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was something that like the really all the layers to that really was eye-opening and through our experiences, especially the second one, in really understanding that in its fullness.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't even understand it in its fullness
Oh,
still,
for
right?
sure.
Like it's
Yeah.
it is ever unfolding, and yeah, it's truly amazing to like have conception and pregnancy happen.
Yeah. Well, and I will say for anyone who's listening that maybe doesn't resonate with that spiritual belief, I will share the best piece of advice that I have ever received from my best friend who has the two most perfect children in the world. And I don't even mean just like who they are, but who they are within her family. And it took her a bit to get pregnant with both of her kids. And she said to me, it was so hard to wait. But if they came at any other time, it wouldn't have been them. And like, look how perfect they are. And like, if you knew them, they're just such little perfect kids. But um, yeah, that's something that I think, and all the things that people say, I remember that was just one that really stuck with me and one that I've spread around to so many people who have also found that as like a seed of hope to really connect to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is that trusting this process. To like to your point of we all have different karmas or lessons that are meant for us, and we just never know what those are.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is continuing to stay open even when we go through them is the I think part of the challenge.
Yeah. And also feeling the damn feelings.
Yeah.
That's an important part of this too. And so, yeah, I'm curious if you want to circle back to the anger piece and share anything more on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it surprised me, honestly, where I think I kind of default to thinking about loss as thinking about it with grief.
Mm,
And I think it can just be so much more nuanced than that. And this really helped me understand that in a different way. Um, so with our second loss, and really, they just felt so different in all of the ways. I think I think anger was more present in the second loss because it really was that like, seriously? Again?
mm-hmm,
What? Like
mm-hmm,
it was like shock and anger.
mm-hmm,
And not so like I really didn't feel grief until weeks later when we actually found out the gender,
Mm.
is when I like immediately grief, just full body. Um, so I guess to back up and like share what that experience was like was, yeah, again, I had one cycle after the first loss, and we felt ready to keep that portal open and continue on this journey that we had started. So yeah, I think just with the timing of things, it had like allowed us to process and to be in a place where we felt ready. And we got pregnant right away again. Um, and there was part of this justification too of like, okay, I know people in my family, they've had one, so this is fine.
Mm.
This one will be great. Like, I'm sure it's just like getting things out of the way, like,
Mhm.
you know, um like our chances are much lower now. Like we probably won't have another one. I forget. We did a ton of research and like numbers and
Mhm.
all of the things, right?
Mhm.
I forget all the numbers now off the top of my head, but we were like, okay, like chances that it happen again are like pretty low. Um, this has happened within your family, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Yes, great. So like we went into it like feeling good, like, okay, yeah, that was like a huge bummer, really traumatic, very inconvenient, but all right, here we are. Let's like move forward. And then just, yeah, I felt like really blindsided when it happened the second time because of all of those reasons. And so this experience was, I had basically, I'd gotten to like, I was like, I thought I was in peak hormones. So I felt really shitty. It had been like a couple weeks that I was like, I cannot get off the couch. Um, all I wanted to eat was French fries and bread. Like that was all I wanted was
Mhm.
like greasy carbs. Nothing else. So that's basically what I was eating. And I also had in my head of like, I need to eat a lot. Like I need a lot of nutrition right now. Um, I need to make sure I'm eating. So like I wasn't really hungry, but I was like forcing myself to like eat a lot and nausea all the time, not sleeping well. And so just with all of that too, it felt like, yeah, I wasn't reaching out to friends. Like I wasn't like seeing people. I wasn't making plans to go running with people. Like I didn't know how I was going to feel. Like I was very disconnected from feeling like I was part of community.
Mm.
And I think then it felt like, okay, I haven't been a part of community for like 4 months. And now I've gone through loss and now I'm pregnant again. And I can't really like connect with people.
Mhm.
And my husband works 3 hours away every other week. So it just like was a very isolating time for both of us, which was really hard to talk about with people because like I don't want to tell people I'm pregnant now, but
Mhm.
like I feel like
Mhm.
crap and
Mhm.
I don't even want to go for a walk. Like, so all of those factors were like very emotionally challenging and physically challenging and things that I hadn't thought about, like how isolating pregnancy can feel. Not just loss, but pregnancy too.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that was really eye-opening and this time around, like the first pregnancy, I hadn't really hit peak hormones, so I like wasn't really feeling too bad yet. This one, I was like fully in peak hormones and like yeah, just felt awful all the time. And so I was like, this is a good sign, right? This means my hormones are increasing, like the baby's still
Mhm.
growing. We hadn't had an ultrasound yet because of the timing, right? So we had one scheduled. We had one scheduled 5 days later. Um, but I had it was interesting. Like it was Saturday. I remember I had felt like really bad for a couple weeks. And then Saturday, I remember the afternoon, I just felt like, huh, like my nausea's gone. And I
Mm.
feel kind of energized right now. I think I can go for a run. This is great. So I went for a run and I literally came home and said to John, was like, I think me and my baby are going to do really big things. I was like,
Mm.
we're going to do really big things in the world. And I just felt like so excited. Um, and then I hadn't really had nausea again and fatigue. Like it just kind of had like dissipated.
Mm.
And by Monday morning, I was having some bleeding, like
Mm.
spotting. No other symptoms, but I was like, oh, there's definitely some like blood. Um,
Mm.
and so I called the midwife who we hadn't even met yet because we hadn't even had our first appointment. Um, and she was like, come in, can you come in today? Because to your experience, what you described, like we don't know where the baby is and we want to see if they're in the uterus or are they somewhere else.
Mhm.
So she said, come in. So I dropped everything. John was able to leave work and we drove 2.5 hours to the midwife that day and she couldn't find a heartbeat.
Mm.
Um and she did say like I'm not really confident using vaginal ultrasound, so that doesn't mean it's not there. Let's get a second opinion. And so basically we then drove back home and went to the ER here. And they were like, it was after hours. So they were like, oh, the tech isn't here to do the ultrasound. You have to come back tomorrow. So then we come back tomorrow morning. So this is Tuesday morning. And they confirmed they couldn't find a heartbeat. And like
Mm.
all this time, I just continued to feel better. I was like, I feel normal again. Like my hormones were clearly dropping.
Mm.
And so it was this completely different experience where I knew, like I remember waking up Tuesday morning and I just said to John, I was like, I don't feel pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
And so we both just knew and like we could feel it. And so it was just this like slower realization as opposed to like the first one was just this like sudden emergency. So as we're in the emergency room on Tuesday morning, we are just processing what we knew was likely true at this point. Um, and it was awful. And but again, they sent us home,
Mhm.
and I kind of forget the timeline of things, but basically they said we basically had three choices at this point. We can wait it out and be at risk for what happened the first time and be in an emergency situation. We could take medication to have it physically pass. Um, I forget the name of it now, but it's basically an abortion pill is what it
Mhm.
would have been. That would have also has its, it doesn't pass necessarily quickly. There's more unknowns. So there's other factors involved. That was option two. And the third one was to get surgery, which is a DNC procedure to go under anesthesia and to have them remove everything in the uterus. And so we end up choosing option three. I had the surgery 2 days later, and and I had 6 weeks later. I had to follow up with the doctor that did the surgery.
Mm.
Um, so for me, that whole time, it was just like so much anger and like anger at different things too, right? Like anger at the baby, anger at
Mm.
their situation, like,
Mhm.
like anger
Mhm.
in all of these other areas.
Yeah.
Anger at myself
Mhm.
and, anger at John, like it was
Mhm.
everything. And it felt weird to go through, like to be in that place where it's like, well, what the hell? We just finished processing this other one.
Yeah.
And now we're going through this again. Um, And like, how do I show up in the world again
Mhm.
now? Like,
Mhm.
like I moved clients again, but still it's like, it felt less of that. I'm going to go into a cave. And it was more just like, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
Because I can't not work again Like,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
now have maxed out our out of pocket for the
Mhm.
year. It's
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
Um, so just I was like, I can't, there's all those pressures of to to our point, in many conversations we've had before, Rita, of like, there's no support in our
Yes.
systems
Yes.
for these experiences,
Yeah.
right? And so I've just lost a second baby,
Mhm.
gone through surgery, hit our out of pocket max, and don't have a way of like, like I work for myself. If I don't
Mhm.
work, I don't get paid. It's
Mhm.
not like,
Mhm.
and we are privileged that like John has a good setup for work. So, like, at least he has a stable income, right?
Yeah.
That's not everyone's situation.
Yeah.
And so there is this expectation to just like get back out there and get back to it. Meanwhile, like processing all of these like incredibly traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
And that is also what makes me angry. Like, I
Mhm.
feel angry now about that because like that needs to change. And if anything, and I think Ayurveda teaches us this, is to like have anger and utilize it for change.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And I think this conversation is like a part of that step towards that. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I've had a million ideas that I've started, that have, I've started and stopped in the last 6 months, because I just haven't had the capacity to like follow through with them. But they're there and I feel them in that they'll find a home somewhere, like they'll evolve somewhere to help people. But anyways, maybe I'm going on a tangent now. But yeah, it's like there was no support and I
Yeah.
felt isolated. I felt disconnected from my community. I felt like I was just going through the motions until I felt better again. And meanwhile, like I was trying to bring my body back to baseline. Like I had gone not just through surgery, but like pregnancy loss.
Yeah.
And just thank God for our Ayurveda because, or else I wouldn't have known what to do or how to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I did know what I needed and how to care for myself through food and through practices. And like I had that. And we also started seeing a grief counselor together as a couple, which was super helpful. And so we had all this support in some ways, but in other ways, it's just like it felt very disconnected from, I don't know, everything from the
Yeah.
rest of life.
Yeah. 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 And I do want to dive into some of those tools that we use and offer some of those to women, but I have to also comment on the anger piece. So I've been feeling anger recently in knowing that in our country, there are women right now who are going through these experiences that you and I went through. And because they're in a state where there are strict abortion laws, they are not having access to these treatments and to these medications because there are all these steps that need to wait a certain period of time. And it has been heartbreaking to hear some of these stories coming out of Texas and Idaho and so on of women that are going through this. And I think having gone through it, and again, saying this as somebody who, like, I think I think if you've never been part of the world of pregnancy loss, then I think it's common to think, oh, you like have a pregnancy loss and then you just miscarry at home. And understanding all of the different factors that for some women, that's not an option. For some women, I think, like you were sharing in your experience, John was several hours away from you. And to just have that feeling of, okay, this could happen at any point, and I'm alone. And I had that prior very painful experience. Like, how traumatizing is that to not have access to these services? This is coming from two women who dip our toes in Western medicine as little as possible, right? Like, you and I are people who are always taking the natural route. This is a situation where we need to have these freaking services available. It is women's health. And it just, that is what makes me really angry. And I think that that is something I do want to say in this episode, is that it is all of our job to do what we can do to help women who are going through these experiences have access to healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, 100, 1,000%. I'm so glad you went there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to swear on here because they like censor us, or there's something that happens
Oh,
where they won't
okay.
show it. So I just wanted to call out that I held back a lot of F-bombs
That's
there,
fair.
but they were there.
I feel like I have been doing the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think this, like, to your point, I hadn't thought about needing these
Oh, yeah.
drugs
Yeah.
until these situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of people that don't know these different layers and nuances to having pregnancy loss. And I think we just thought, we were so naive. We're like, oh yeah, we're healthy, we'll get pregnant, no problem. Like,
Yeah.
we won't need any of that. It'll be great. And it's just not, that's just not the truth.
Yeah.
And whether it's conception, whether it's different points in the pregnancy, whether it's like whatever it is, there's so many things that can happen in
Yeah.
this process of building and creating life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to add fear to that, right? And that's hard. I think once you've gone through any kind of loss once, I think we're kidding ourselves if we say we're going to totally take fear out of the equation. I think that that's now part of that journey. But I never want to be somebody who's stirring up fear, but it's also, yeah, I guess it just keeps coming back to feeling the feelings and acknowledging that that is part of it, and how much of a deeper layer it is if you're in a situation where that's not accessible. Like yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot we can go down that
Yeah.
route, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was one more thing. There's a lot through this that I learned that no doctor had ever talked to me about before. And yeah, there's a lot that I won't go into detail about, but essentially, like, we had the fetus tested after our second loss through the surgery, and it gave us some more clarity and some more answers. And what they found was no indication that we would not keep working towards having a family and keep trying to have another pregnancy. But it was eye-opening in the sense that it was even available, right? Like with the first loss, it just happened so fast. Like, we didn't even think like, oh, we could have the fetus tested. And I understand if that's not a direction people want to choose. I think for us, with the second, it felt like we need more answers here to understand why this happened a second time. And so we don't know the results of the first one, but we do know of the second one. And it could have been, a number of different things, but it was, there wasn't an indication that it was a genetic pattern. Right. It was an abnormal chromosome. There was an extra chromosome. And the other piece of that is so beyond us is that my body knew this was not a viable pregnancy, which just is so still hard to wrap my head around, of like how intelligent this system is without me doing anything.
Sure.
And the uterus, like, I don't know who's calling the shots necessarily in that situation. Like, is it the blood? Is it the uterus? Like, who's calling the shot? But like, I'm so grateful for that too, because, and a friend had called this out to me and said, you are so healthy. And that's how your body was able to recognize that this pregnancy was either not viable or not for you, like to not come to term. And I think there's something very like spiritually connected to that, and also scientifically connected to that. I think it's both in this situation, and I feel both of those things. And I think that's a really important distinction, because that is where health comes into play, not necessarily in conception all the time in the way that I thought initially going into it, I think, but in the way that like my body is healthy to recognize when something isn't aligned.
Mm. Yeah, it's a really fascinating way to frame that and look at that. You said that to me at one point in our conversations, but I feel like it's hitting me in a different way now, and I'm like processing that as you're saying it. But I think that that's a really, yeah, I think that's a really interesting take. I think that that will resonate with a lot of people. Yeah, yeah, and just like again, coming back to that conversation around trusting our bodies and how easy I think it is for us to create stories around why this is happening. And even that's, even what you just said, like, is technically a story, right? Like, we're always trying to validate, and we won't always understand the intelligence of the body. But I know that that's somewhere that you and I really align, is that we feel committed to trusting the intelligence of our bodies. And even though we might not always be able to interpret those communications or know the intentions, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I feel complete in my stories that I've
Yeah.
shared. And yeah, maybe we can talk about some of the practices that we've utilized and that have brought me back to life through
Mm,
all of this and have helped me feel like me again and
yeah.
this new version of me, let's say.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I'm very happy to share some of those as well. I'm sure there were many, but what were some of the tools that really stuck out to you that were really supportive?
Yeah. Obviously, Abhyanga.
Of course. I knew that'd be your number one.
I mean, I think the first piece was just letting go of any expectation of like
Mm,
what self-care looked like
mm,
was a really big piece for me. And
yeah.
like, I can't try and do all this perfectly right now. I'm going to do the best that I'm capable of, and I'm fine with that. And I can't say that was necessarily easy because there was a part of me that was like, I should be doing or I need to be doing, and I was like, and I'm not doing. I'm the practitioner, I should be doing, right? Like
Mm,
that imposter syndrome feeling. And I just needed to like let that go and be like, you like show up in any way that you can today. And that's awesome.
mm-hmm,
Um, that was the biggest thing for me in both situations. But I think to get more practical in like tools, like certainly herbs, like herbal infusions, we've talked
mm-hmm,
about this on other episodes that people can go back and listen. But even just like bringing in uterine supporting herbs, nervous system supporting herbs, brain, mind supporting herbs, and just like just integrating, right? Like, okay, do an overnight infusion, don't complicate it. Just
mm-hmm,
to keep it simple,
mm-hmm,
get some herbs in, don't try and make it perfect. Um, so like herbs, very powerful for baths, beverages, like herbs in all forms.
mm-hmm,
That was really helpful. And, after surgery specifically, the first thing I had was barley,
mm,
like barley water, um, more of a thicker barley water. So it's kind of chewy, but that like cleanses the uterus, tones the uterus. That
mm.
felt really easy on my digestion. I think I had shared with you after my surgery that for like 7 days straight, I
Oh, yeah.
had I had the most perfect bowel movements I have ever had in my life, and it was so curious to me. It was just so curious. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And it was like 4 times a day for like 7 days. And it was
Yeah.
literally my body was just like clearing everything out. Because I think part of it too, like I had gotten very constipated
Mm,
in those first few weeks of when the hormones were increasing, which makes
mm-hmm,
sense.
mm-hmm.
And so I think I just was holding on to more than I realized. And then like after the surgery, my body was like, let it all go. And it definitely did. It was like very fascinating. So,
I remember you texted me
yeah,
that. Yeah.
like, Rita will appreciate this.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So yeah, I think that like kanji and barley water, like those things are really helpful after surgery specifically, or just when I just like didn't have energy for cooking,
Hmm.
just put on some like rice and water and like drink it. So
Mhm. Mhm.
things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about,
Simple things.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely connect with what you first said there in terms of having to really acknowledge that when you're in it, that's not the time to be doing all the self-care, and I've come to really understand that and talk about that with clients too. That's like we do these self-care practices to build ourselves up and build up our resilience. When we're in it, that's not the time that you're going to be checking all the boxes. That's the time that you're going to be picking one or two things maybe. So I definitely want to, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that. I felt that as you were saying that. Also, definitely infusions and easy to digest meals, especially in recovering after the ectopic pregnancy and the medication. My Agni really took a hit. My digestion really took a hit for a while. I don't know how much of that was grief versus the medication versus the hormones or all three probably, but I definitely needed to bring in some really simple to digest foods. So kitchery in the Instant Pot became the go-to because it's just you can get it together in 15 minutes. So easy. Um, Herb wise, yeah, lots of infusions, lots of herbal baths. I worked with Ashoka for a while, and what's so interesting about that herb is it's a very astringent women's health herb. So it was very aligned with some things that I was experiencing in both my GI tract as well as in my menstrual cycles to follow, but it also translates as the reliever of grief. And so it just felt like an herb that I really connected with it during that time. I was putting it in my baths, I was taking it orally. It just felt like very much an herbal ally during that time. And specifically for womb care, I worked a lot with castor oil packs, specifically thinking about that fallopian tube clearance. And yeah, that was something that was helpful. And I did a little bit of yoni steaming, but more in a ritual way. And that was something that I think was more for me about just really creating that space to release and process. And I think what comes up when I talk about that, it's like not like it's a one-time thing, right? It's like you have your ritual and then it's like, all right, what's your ritual going to be next month? And that's how I've come to think of menstrual cycles in general. It's like when you have your bleed, you're releasing what you've been holding on to the month prior, and that's literal when it comes to your tissue and your uterine lining, but it's also emotional and it's also mental. And so, yeah, I think that sometimes my bleed has become a space to also just honor and process grief. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Like this month it wasn't. But I do think that it's something that I've come to a place of again, it's like when it comes up, I'm gonna feel those feels. And it's been helpful. I've had conversations with my husband and it's like there's nothing that we need to talk about to like reframe this or make it better. It's just these are feelings that are going to circulate at different times because grief is not linear. And yeah, that's how I think of these self-care practices. It's like we're doing things to support the actual rhythms of the body and get the body back in rhythm, and then they also can be this sort of ceremony that we can create for ourselves. And I would love, you were talking earlier about these ideas that have popped into your mind of how you can use this experience to create change. I will say that that is something that I am excited to bring into my practice more is creating ritual and creating ceremony and helping women who have gone through this with these tools because I can't imagine going through it without them. It would be a really different experience. to not have had these tools and these practices to support myself physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I think they're really important too, like you were saying, y- you're learning them like you have them in your toolkit,
Mm,
right? And you know what you can do when you come across these situations that are very unexpected. Um, you know that you can rely on things that do help bring you back to life without needing to have them be perfect. But I think Ayurveda is just so profound in how it can revitalize the body and the tissues and the mind and our energy. And um I do remember feeling I really wanted to get a massage
mm,
after the second one, and it just took so much energy to try and find
mhm,
someone.
mhm,
I didn't have the capacity, and so never got it. Like, I still
mhm,
haven't gotten it. And,
mhm.
like, if you're someone that's, like, wanting to help someone, like, I wish that someone could have been my, um, what's the word? My, like, concierge for, like,
Oh, sure. Like,
right,
let me
like,
book you a massage. Let me, like,
yes,
yeah,
let me
yeah.
find one for you. Like, if there
Mm,
was, like, a miscarriage liaison,
mm.
right? That's like, help me. I have no capacity for, like, finding a massage therapist right now or, like,
Mm.
whatever it
Or a
is, or
counselor, or yeah,
counselor or
yeah.
something. And I think that was just really eye-opening for me where it's like, I don't even have the brain power right now to, like, research this or where do I
Mhm.
start? And so it just never happened.
Mm,
And that's something that, like, I wish that women had where, they could just have someone help them
mm. Yeah,
and just, like, guide them, like, "This is what's available to you, like, let me book it for you. Let me bring
yeah,
you there.
yeah,
You don't have to
yeah,
worry about all you have to do is just, like, come with me."
yeah. Or even in home. I completed a postpartum Ayurvedic doula training, and there were, oh, I don't know how far I'll go into that, but the timing of that, it's something I've always wanted to do, and also something where I expected to be in a different place in my journey when I did it.
Mm.
And I wasn't sure how that training would go, but one part of it that I just loved so deeply is there was a lot of conversation on pregnancy loss
Mhm.
and about how when you're postpartum, it's a huge it's the most vata that you may feel in your lifetime is postpartum. And when you have a pregnancy loss, that's postpartum. There's that same experience, there's that same increase in vata, and as you're describing, like, that's putting you in this place where you're just depleted physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so in this training, which is an in-home service where you'd go and you'd cook for somebody and you'd do an abhyanga, an oil massage for them, we had a lot of conversation around, could we also offer this for women who have experienced pregnancy loss, because they need that too. Like, they need that support as well. And I think that gets lost.
It completely gets lost, and I'm so glad you said that because when you go through birth, there's a baby,
Mm,
and people support, like, people show up, people bring food. When you go through pregnancy loss, that doesn't happen.
mhm.
Most people don't know that it's happened because it's such a convoluted place to share and feel safe and comfortable to share that, like, most people don't know. And then you have to do all this on, like, take care of yourself and, like, nurse yourself back to health on your own.
Yeah.
And you're in postpartum. And
Yeah.
that was something that I felt very deeply where, like, I have been through postpartum twice
Mhm.
without a baby between January and April,
Mhm. Mhm.
4 months. 2 postpartums, like, my hormones, it took like, I really actually don't think they've stabilized until this past, um, cycle, like, on my bleed
Mhm.
now, this feels like the first healthy cycle
Yeah.
since the surgery.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't ovulated until this cycle. So, my hormones were still trying to regulate themselves, and that is just such a, like, a cascade of like, a roller coaster on top of life, just like
Mhm.
continuing with life. And so I'm
Mhm.
really glad you pointed that out, because that has been something that is like been like right in front of my face, and like has made it really hard to talk to people and
Mhm.
connect with people. And it's like I just went through two losses
Mhm.
4 months apart. I don't know, 3 or 4 months, whatever it is. Very close. And I it just takes so much energy to like
Mhm.
feel back to yourself again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I feel drawn right now to repeat one of the first things I said, which is just I just want to take a moment and send love to women who are currently going through this, or even if you're listening to this, maybe your pregnancy loss was years ago
Yeah.
and you're thinking like I didn't think about this. I didn't process this. I didn't have those tools. I just went business as usual. I don't think it's too late. I don't think it's too late to process it. I don't think it's too late to have a ceremony or ritual for yourself in that way. And it just, I think that when we have conversations like this, it encourages more conversation. And I think that we're not here to really offer these grand answers as to how to make everything better. But I think how we improve systems and how we improve not just how things are handled in the medicine system, but also in how they're handled culturally. Like that all starts with just conversation and curiosity and vulnerability. So I'm glad that we could bring some vulnerability to this space and share some of our experience. And I hope it's something that's helpful for somebody somewhere. And I think at the end, it feels helpful for me to just openly talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that we are having this conversation and sharing
Yeah.
it with our community.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, thank
Mm.
you for everything that you've shared, and
Yeah.
yeah, for being here through all of it. And yeah,
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
appreciate your friendship.
Yeah, same thing. What a weird thing to say.
Same.
My brain's gonna die.
Same, same.
Same, same. Yeah, no, I'm back at you. It's not lost on me the timing of both of our stories
Yeah,
and how much more connected we've become over the last couple years and how supportive that has been. Um, well, one other thing I wanted to say is I had the thought a couple minutes ago that there might be some people in my personal life who listen to this who
mhm,
actually don't like this is new information. They didn't
mm,
know that I went through this. And I think as much as I was saying about like it feels good to say this out loud. I also don't want anyone to take offense to the idea of like, oh, they went through that and they didn't tell me.
mm,
If that happens, it's not about you. It's
mhm,
about I think for me it was not having the energy to have that conversation. And then when I did get to a place to have the conversation, I'd ask myself the question of would this actually be helpful for me to share this? And I think that oftentimes I came back to that place of it's not something that I am looking to process more with more people. And so I do think that I share that personally, but also just I think as that reminder that it should always come down to, is it something that would feel good for you to share it right now? And that it's not a requirement to share, but then also, yeah, it's like that balance between the two.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad you said that, because yeah, definitely some details of what I've shared today maybe me new for family or friends that are listening. It's hard. It's a hard place to be and to navigate that, and that's going to feel different at different times throughout the
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
Um, and it takes a lot of energy. I got to a point where I like wanted people to know,
Mhm.
but I was so tired.
Mhm.
It just didn't feel worth my energy to share in a lot of
Mhm.
moments. And yeah, and that just feels different at different times. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot to navigate. And
And there's no right or wrong way to
Right.
navigate a pregnancy loss. I think that's
Totally.
maybe like where we're
Yeah.
landing here. Although the wrong way is no support from the
Yes.
systems.
Well, and I was just gonna say, like, there's not a lot of the research is very minimal
Mm,
on pregnancy loss because it is so, like, there's so much shame
mm,
that women feel after going through
mm-hmm,
this.
mm-hmm,
And it's hard to share about.
mm-hmm.
And so, I get it. I totally get it and have felt that myself. And uh, yeah, I think there needs to be more research
Yeah,
out there on these situations, not just physically, but emotionally,
yeah,
how it impacts our health and our
yeah,
mental health.
yeah,
Because that is, I have learned a lot in going through this.
yeah.
So if there are any researchers out there, send us a message.
Yeah, because that's what can drive some change systemically.
Right.
Yeah,
Education, knowledge, awareness.
yeah. There's one other thing that I wanted to share, and I'll see how it comes out loud because I'm still kind of formulating it in my head. I remember
Yeah.
saying it to you at one point, but I think that this portal that we've talked about, this like I'm entering through, I've opened up the portal of welcoming this baby into our lives. I mean that pretty literally when I say that it's a portal. And I think when I say portal, I think of it as an opportunity for extreme transformation. And I think that maybe not always, but in many cases, extreme transformation starts with a challenge, with something that's very challenging. And your portal into that could be that experience in the infertility phase. It could be the pregnancy loss. It could be that you have that totally normal pregnancy and then it's this transformation of challenge that you go through maybe when your kids are a couple years old. Or it can totally happen when we think about mothering in these non-traditional ways. And I think about women who are maybe mothering a business and that in itself can be this portal. But
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with it is it comes back to how we initially started this conversation, where I think it's just so important for as humans to remind ourselves that everybody has challenges that you might not know what their journey is. And also, if you are on this journey of pregnancy loss, hate that for you, to be candid, because it's kind of like a club that I didn't want to be in. But I think that's how it can often feel, is like everyone's in this club that I'm not in. Everyone's in this mothering club that I'm not in, and I want to be there. And it's been helpful for me to reframe that as looking in this bigger picture of we're all going to go through something challenging when we transition into these phases of life. And I think supporting each other's challenges, even when we can't understand them, is really important. And recognizing that even though we're experiencing a certain specific challenge, and you might look around and see everyone's pregnancy announcements and see everyone with their kids, and it can just feel like this club that everyone's in that you're not. Like I feel that, and I struggle with that still to this day, this feeling of like of being an outsider, I guess. And I think everybody is going to experience something like that at some point in life, at some point in their journey. This is just our challenge. Like, this is ours. Um, I don't know if any of that made sense.
It totally made sense. And yeah, I don't think it's a perspective that's shared very often. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's important to call that out because it very much feels like I want to be there and now it feels impossible to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm on this journey that I don't feel like I chose.
Mm-hmm.
even though there is some belief in me that like maybe I did choose this.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever the hindsight is, a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road from now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Follow our podcast in 10 years and see what it is. But
Yeah.
right, like I think there was this immediate feeling of like, I didn't choose this. Why
Yeah.
is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then it became this, did I choose this?
Mm.
Did my baby choose this? Maybe it doesn't matter who chose it. This is where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And being present in that, to your point of, we never know when what the challenges are, but we're certainly going to go through them at some point. I think to your point, it just acknowledges the isolation in that feeling.
Yeah.
And in that journey that feels like it's a journey we never wanted, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think to that point of see how we feel in 5-10 years, right? It's just I guess it's always a tricky thing to like compare and contrast different experiences with pregnancy loss. And all of that said, while honoring our own, I also want to say out loud that there are women who have gone through countless recurrent heavy losses for years and years and years. And just honoring everyone's experiences and that there are points of grief where people might feel very different than how we're expressing.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you want to acknowledge everyone's different place in this journey and the feelings that it entails.
Yeah.
Because it feels different for every person
Yeah.
in different places and at different times of that journey. And I think you want people to feel seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also that this podcast is a reflection of your and my experiences with pregnancy loss and not a greater reflection of every woman's, and that maybe this episode would be really supportive to send to your friend and maybe it wouldn't. I
That's a
don't
good
know.
point. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Mhm.
I think that's a tricky question in itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe if you do send it, maybe there's that level of disclaimer there. And it's like, hey, I listened to this and I don't know, maybe you found it interesting or whatever feelings you had. But yeah, I think going back to that piece of how we can just be extra mindful in how we're supporting women, because they might not want you to send this. They might not
Mhm.
be looking for
Mhm.
other support or
Mhm.
other suggestions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, going
Yeah.
back to that question, like, how can I support you?
Yeah.
I came across this resource if you think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of you and I love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like keeping it simple to not forcing something on someone if they're not wanting the information.
Yeah. It's not a time for unsolicited advice.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah. But share it with somebody. No, I don't get. I'm kidding.
No, I think, yeah. If it, I know I'm over here like, don't share our podcast. No, obviously, if it landed for you, then please do share.
Mhm.
And if it's, I think I would just really love to hear from people on this one. I always say that at the end of every podcast. I'm like, go on our Patreon, tell us what you think. This is definitely the most vulnerable episode that we've had, and one that if you do feel called to share your feedback, whether this landed or not, I'm open to that. So I just wanted to say that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I think my thoughts are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a long one. It's like we've hit like rich roll level here with our time stamp of 2 hours. Do you listen to Rich Roll?
No, I have no idea what you're
He has
talking about.
well known for like really long podcast episodes,
okay.
like 2+ hours.
Got it. Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long one.
we've hit it. Yeah.
We had a lot to say. We
Yeah.
said it. Yeah.
We've rich rolled this podcast. No, maybe that's not a good thing to say. I don't know.
Well, I think we can end there and just say, again, we're Care Bear beaming out some love to all of you. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world to us and help support our work if you'd like, share, leave a review, as well as subscribe to our podcast on whichever platform you use. If you're looking for more connection or would like to support this podcast, we'd love to have you join our Patreon for $5 a month. Here you'll get bonus episodes and access to our community chat Q&A.
And don't forget to check out our wellness library, which is filled with self-guided classes, kitchen tutorials, herbal recipes, and more Ayurvedic practices, all for just $5 a month. Thanks so much for being here with us. Until next time, be well.